On First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First Live.
On First Live, presented to you by About the Fans. I'm your host, Kevin Brawl. I'm here with Eli Sussman, just the two of us, as the song goes. But hopefully a couple more of our staffers join, maybe Alex Carver, maybe Nate. But yeah, not a good week for the Marlins, not a good homestand for the Marlins. It was really bad, actually. It was terrible. There's no other way to say it. They lose 2 out of 3 against the San Francisco Giants. Then they get swept by the worst team in baseball, the Colorado Rockies. Yeah, I mean, I think the way to say this, Eli, is truly embarrassing that the Marlins were swept by this team. This is a bad team. No other way to say it.
Yeah.
The first game proved it. It was a one-man show of Hunter Goodman and how good he was in the catching position for them. 3 home runs, ended up driving in a couple runs. I mean, Eli, your overall thoughts on this terrible series?
Yeah, it was awful considering the circumstances where the Rockies came in with on pace to be the worst team ever in a variety of areas. And the way that this lines up, you would think would favor the Marlins, the way that the available hitters that the Marlins had position player wise, it got off to a good start. Those first couple innings of the first game kind of played out the way that Marlins fans would have hoped for, to explode for 4 runs in those first 2 innings and to be threatening for more too. Even in the middle of that first game, they kept threatening and threatening and threatening, so many scoring opportunities. And then it just played out very similarly to the Giants series before that, where that last 2.5 games, hardly anything going offensively at all, even against guys that had consistently struggled throughout the entire year with the Rockies on the mound. The bullpen for the Rockies pitched 12 2/3 scoreless innings. I did not see that coming. For people that have watched the Marlins this year, the redeeming quality is that they're very resilient late in games. They usually save their best for last late in games. For them to very rarely even put together rallies in those later innings against this Rockies bullpen, that was a big bummer right there. And in the finale, the Marlins took a lot of heat. Probably, as usual, the manager is the one that falls on the sword here for the lineups. The lineup that they used in that series finale, that getaway day game, where there's Jack Winkler in there, Roberto Hernandez, and Nick Fortes all starting at the same time. That kind of was like throwing up the white flag in a way that was very surprising. And ultimately that made the difference, where they made it close. In all these games, they made it close. So that's why I won't say this was a shocking result, because all these games were close. I mean, all these games could have been winnable with one big hit here or there. It's not like they got destroyed by the Rockies. It's just they got beaten 3 consecutive times in a way that no other team has been beaten by the Rockies in over a year. That was the last time they swept any kind of series, was in mid-May of 2024. They hadn't won any series 2 out of 3 at all this year to this point. For the Marlins to fall on the wrong ends of 3 straight close games to them it should be something that you would expect to engender a stronger reaction. I think that is another thing that just rubs people the wrong way, that this result is unacceptable even in a tiny sample. And you'd like to see the team, in Clayton McCullough in particular, be bothered by that in a way that he just isn't. He's somebody that's so process driven. And I'd like to see more of a balance between the process and the results. If things are not working out, even in a single series like this, you'd like them to aspire for more. You'd like there to be a little bit more fire there. And with this team, they're just treating it like any other series loss, without acknowledging the context here, that they were going up against the weakest opponent on their schedule. I think that even in the grand scheme of things, even with people realizing that this Marlins season is not going to be a contending one, I think this series in particular represents a new low point emotionally. The fact that they were embarrassed, as you say, on their home field 3 games in a row.
Carver, first of all, your thoughts on the series, and then second of all, let's start diving into Sandy, who probably overall had his best start of the season as expected when you're facing the Rockies. 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Went with his secondary pitches a lot more, like the sinker, and the curveball more than his usual fastball changeup combo.
Yeah, I was excited to see how he incorporated the sweeper. That's what I can say about Sandy is how he incorporated that pitch that he has switched, as a lot of Marlins pitchers have. I had questions about it in spring training. Why are you changing Sandy? Why are you changing what Sandy is doing? He's a Cy Young Award winner. But I think he started to finally incorporate that pitch well in this outing. So it was a takeaway that I had, Kevin, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. That was one of the few positives from this series is that Sandy started to incorporate that sweeper a bit more, and I think it looked good. Obviously, it's a weak opponent. Obviously, it's not a good offense. Actually, probably the worst offense in baseball, I would say. Honestly, their pitching is not bad. I mean, the Rockies have really had a hard time, but I don't think it's really been a fault of their pitching. I think it's been a fault of their offense just refusing to get things going and being very porous in that fact. And they didn't really even do that in this series. Their offense didn't really get going at all, but they did it enough to where the Marlins just couldn't answer. And I think a lot of this series and a lot of the reason that the Marlins lost this series is not on players. I think it's on management. And Clayton McCullough in this series had a lot to answer for. I mean, that game where he in the 9th inning and you're within a run and you bring in 3 cold bats off the bench, that is abhorrent management by I know he's a rookie manager. I know he's doing his best. I understand it. But you bring in you pinch hit for Dane Myers, who's been one of your best players. He could be an all-star, and you pinch hit for him. Why are you doing that? The Nick Fortes one, I understand. The Sanoja one, I thought Sanoja could have turned the lineup over. Like, again, I'm not him. I'm not in his position. I don't know what he's being told. But to pinch hit all 3 of your hitters in a manageable game in the 9th inning is very, very, very unorthodox and something that I don't think a lot of people can get behind. So I didn't get that. Removing Sandy, that's up in the air. I know a lot of people had issues with that, where Sandy was working his best outing of the year and they removed him at 70 pitches. I understand. There is also the question that, hey, he's coming off of Tommy John, and maybe he that was the safe thing to do. What I would say is that this player was ahead of schedule in his rehab. I think he could have gone at least another 20, 30 more pitches and at least pitched the 7th and got to your setup man. That would be my answer to that question. Again, I'm not him either, but I think Sandy could have at least gone that 7th inning. If he got into trouble, at least give him the 3 batters. At least the 3 batters. If he allowed a base runner, fine, take him out. But give him those 3 batters. He's proven many, many time and time again that when he's going, and he's going good. And in this outing, he was going really, really good. And he could have saved your bullpen. He could have saved an arm. Like there was a ton of potential there for Sandy to do more than what he did, and he did enough. I'm not saying Sandy didn't do enough. He did enough, but there was room for him to do even more. So I didn't agree with that situation either. I thought he should have been given the 7th inning and then go to a setup, but that didn't happen either. And then, as Eli said, just the other than, I guess, the little bit animated we saw him get on balls and strikes calls, I guess, is what you can say. The first time ever that I think we've seen Clayton get animated. There's just no answer. There's no answer. It's the same old press conference. It's the same old, we tried our best. It's the same old, we're going to go back to the drawing board and try to do our best to win baseball games. It's just the same answers. There's really not any accountability. When you lose against one of the worst teams we've seen in decades, 3 straight games, and he had faults of his own, many faults of his own. I think that the players weren't good in the series overall, but I think that a lot of the brunt of the series falls on the manager.
Well, I want to get your thoughts, Eli, on them taking out Sandy after 70. You hear that maybe potentially he would only go 4 that start is what we had heard, maybe 5. But Sandy was efficient, man. It was only 70 pitches. And then the worst part of this whole thing, and Carver noted it in the postgame, was that Sandy, first of all, did not lobby to go back out there. And we know Sandy as the competitor who wants to go out there, wants to go deep into games. He wants to finish the games. He's made that very clear ever since the start of this offseason, or when we were allowed to begin talking to him again, that he wanted to go out there and pitch 9 innings a game. He made that very clear. Obviously, that wasn't going to be realistic just because of the injury, but for him to say, I was fine with it. I was fine not going back out there after 70 pitches, to me is insane. I think there are moments where sometimes you just have to let the analytics go by and go with the feel of the game. Obviously, and with all due respect to Clayton McCullough, he did not have a feel for that game whatsoever. I think this is the game where Hunter Goodman took Anthony Bender deep after that, and that was it. And then I think that same game was the one that Carver noted. They went with 3 straight pinch hitters, and the Dane one didn't make sense whatsoever, going with Liam Hicks. Fortes made sense. And then Sanoja in that same game had walked twice and probably could have walked a third time in that game, or at least put the ball in play and legged out an infield single. He's a really fast guy. There's many ways to look at this series, and I think a lot of it does definitely fall on Clayton. And I know I posted the post-game video, and I got a lot of backlash on things that he had mentioned. Feeling this is like a moral victory with how good Sandy was, and it really wasn't whatsoever. I mean, this is probably one of the more embarrassing games we've played all season.
Yeah. With the Sandy decision in particular, I do sort of see both sides to it because in some ways it's reminiscent of that game against the White Sox where he was pitching pretty well. If you stop that game after 5 innings, that's arguably his best start of the season. And then he ends up allowing a soul-crushing, game-deciding home run to a rookie against the White Sox, a 3-run shot, and it ruins his final line and all that. They firsthand seen that kind of experience this year where it seems like he was in control of the game. He was really efficient, and still just that's the one common thread with Sandy this entire year is just not locating his pitches where he wants to. So when he's allowed homers, it's because he leaves them over the middle. Sometimes when he allows big innings, it's because he's allowing too many walks. In this case, it was one of the better games he's pitched all year, even regardless of the opponent. At the same time, they lost the game because their offense just stalled. They would have lost if Sandy could have pitched the rest of the game and he could have held them scoreless, and I guess it would have gone to extra innings or something. They didn't score. They didn't score aside from those 2 runs very early on. That was ultimately why they lost in this one. So when it comes to that particular decision, not too harsh against it. At the same time, to rationalize it, to explain it as if Sandy needs to build up his confidence, I don't buy that. For someone that's so accomplished as Sandy is, I don't think confidence is an issue. I think it's just more so about his performance. So I didn't like the explanation, but I actually, in the moment, I could understand what happened. Ultimately, it came down to just not scoring runs. The fact that they went an entire week without hitting a single home run for a team that had actually been hitting for really solid power, especially at home this entire season. So like this one was a balance. My default is to put more of the blame on the players than on managerial decisions. And I think that is the case in this series too, that they just did not, in that first game, they didn't execute in obvious run scoring situations. And then the other 2 games, the quality of the at-bats and just the quality of contact was not as good as it should have been. I'll always default to the players themselves having more of control of the game. And in this case, it was disappointing that the players themselves got outplayed by the guys on the Rockies, the 9-50 Rockies.
Well, I won't disagree with you that they got outplayed, but what I would say, and I think our friend LMF put this well, and I mean, again, he has a lot of opinions, and some we agree with and some we don't, but this one I actually really agreed with.
Wow.
He put out a video the other day that said that baseball is about continuity, that guys thrive based off of continuity. Pitchers thrive off of being out there once every 5 days. Guys thrive off of being out there in the same position in the lineup. How many different lineups has this team put out? How many different positions have they asked every player in this lineup to play in? How can you get used to being in an RBI slot? How can you get used to being in the leadoff spot? How can you get used to being in the second spot when you're in a different position in the lineup every single day? And that is on this manager. This manager has gone with a different lineup every single game of this season. That's not only unorthodox, that's literally a mistake because you can't get a guy used, especially a young roster, you can't get used to hitting and playing and contributing in the same manner that they would be likely used to doing on any other team if you're switching them around every single day. So when you're in a power spot, you're used to hitting a home run. You're probably going out there looking for a fastball. When you're in a second spot, you're probably going out there looking for a couple of pitches to take. When you're in the leadoff spot, you're looking to steal a base. Whatever it may be, that the strategy is different for each player, especially if you're an analytically driven team that the Marlins are trying to be, and you're putting your players in a different position in the lineup every single day, almost for every single player. At least very frequently, they're in different positions in the lineup. It is very, very, very foolish.
And to be fair, the lineup, probably Clayton isn't even making it. Like he's probably just being given the lineup card and he's saying, all right, this is what you're going with today. Now, in-game decision-making, I think a lot of it does fall on Clayton, and it has not been very good. It's been very interesting. But something I want to talk about, and it kind of falls within the starting pitcher, is Max Meyer. Guys, he had a terrible month of May. Like, there's no other way to say it. And we could go into his last start against the Rockies, but just month of May had a 6.31 ERA. He gave up 6 home runs, gave up 18 earned runs. And in just his last start against the Rockies, 5 innings, he gives up 10 hits, 4 runs, 5 runs, 4 of them are earned, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Just not good. Not good start for Max. He's really been struggling. Lands on the 15-day IL with a left hip impingement, saying that was something that had been bothering him the last couple starts, but nothing really significant to take him out. And then his last start against the Rockies, he said that was the big issue. Eli, what have you been seeing with Max that is leading to this? And my thoughts on it is a lot of it is just solely because he's going with a slider way too much. Similar issues to what he had when he came back but came back up from the minor leagues in 2024, that the sliders are getting hit way too hard. He's not using his other pitches as much. The fastball isn't as good. And I mean, someone's going to have to tell me where these pitches are, but I haven't seen the sweeper. I haven't seen the sinker that he had been talking about, how good it felt all spring, that he actually used during spring training outings, unlike this season where he's going slider, changeup, fastball again. And like 70% of his pitches are sliders that are getting hit about 105 miles per hour at exit velo on average. So what are you seeing with Max? And how much do you think this is a phantom IL? Because it really feels like it. I mean, if you struggle against if Sandy would have struggled against the Rockies, like, man, you probably would have been seeing another player going on the phantom IL.
So I guess I have a slightly different take in that, one, it is concerning and disappointing. I wouldn't put too much of it on pitch usage being the cause of it. As you mentioned, his slider has just been hit a lot hard these last few starts than it was early on. Early on, it was one of the most valuable pitches in all of baseball. And over this last month, it's getting barreled in a surprising way. And it has the overall numbers for it this year are still like a little bit above average, but in a way that it's definitely come back down to earth. I think a lot of that is maybe due to this injury. We didn't see it coming. To your point, we were wondering, how does Yuri slide back into the rotation? And top of mind, it seemed like Sandy would be the one that gets some time off to make that spot for him. And with Max, even though he was struggling, this wasn't necessarily top of mind as a possibility. But that being said, the fact that he's just not finishing his pitches, I actually believe him on this. And I'm somebody that's kind of skeptical about what these guys say publicly to justify what's going on. In this case, it did seem like finishing his pitches was an issue, and that he was trying to bury his pitches lower into the zone, especially his slider. And then instead he was leaving it in the middle of the plate and it was getting crushed. As nasty a pitch as it is, when you throw it right down the middle, it gets hit pretty hard, as we've seen the last several starts. It kind of adds up the way that this team has explained it with him, especially these last 2 starts with the Padres unable to get a single strikeout, as you see there. And then even with the Rockies, it was that combination between making some nasty pitches and then also getting crushed. There were 2 homers, and I think there was a third that was like hit off the wall. That combination of occasionally making good pitches, but sometimes just throwing meatballs, even with your slider, I think there was something physically wrong with him. The bigger point of criticism is that they admitted that this was an issue the last couple of starts. Yet why was he working through it? He was hurt, if they knew that this hip thing was bothering him the last couple outings, it's hard to justify like why he was still making his scheduled appearances. You should have put him on the IL or at least skipped a single start when it was clear that there was something wrong. This is a team that already on their active roster, they have Beyozo, they have Junk, guys that were stretched out in case they need to fill in on short notice and do a spot start. That was an option. So to me, that is the more troubling thing, is that the team was aware of this, and yet they still had him pitching and unfortunately struggling, especially those last 2 outings. To me, that's the bigger thing, and we'll have a clear idea when he comes back from this. So they're saying that they expect it to be a short IL stint, pretty close to the minimum. We'll actually have to see how that plays out. But with Max, I'm kind of withholding judgment a little bit. I want to see what he looks like once this IL situation passes, because to me, it does somewhat add up. It checks out in my mind that he was just not the same guy as before, and a lot of it came down to physically not finishing the pitches the way that he was doing back in April.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're talking about a smaller sample than last year, but whiff rates on the slider were up. Whiff rates, other than the changeup, on all of his pitches, the whiff rates were up. He was using the other two pitches, maybe not in these last like 1 to 2 starts, but they're higher effort pitches, so you get it, especially if he's not following through the way that he needs to. There's something going on. So, especially as Eli noted, if they knew that something was going on and they continued to throw him out there, that's a different equation. We would have to ask that question and, see if we can get an answer to it. But yeah, if this is and this is a competitor, so like he's very confident. He's going to tell you that he's fine. Even if potentially he's not. Like I don't know that for a fact, but I know that from his background, that even if he's not 100% okay, he'd probably tell you that he is. So again, he was using the 3 pitches probably in these last 1 to 2 starts because he was staying away from those higher effort, newer pitches. But overall in the season, like all of his pitches, he's been better. His fastball's been better. He had been using those pitches, the sinker and slider, or sorry, sinker and sweeper as best as possible. And then, the spin rates, like I said, were up on slider, fastball, even changeup spin rate was up, even though whiff rate was down on the changeup. But anyways, like I said, he was using those pitches. He was going in a good direction, and then all of a sudden it went downwards pretty quickly. If you look at game logs, like he just all of a sudden went downward pretty quickly in these last few starts. So I think there's definitely something going on, as Eli noted. So I hope that the Marlins caught this in time and that he can come back quickly.
Another 2 pitchers I want to talk about because they pitched on the same day. It was Cal Quantrill, Jansen Junk. Eli, I know how you feel about Cal Quantrill, so I'm gonna ask you about Jansen Junk. He's been really good. Like he's been pretty good. Like I mean, had the good start against the Angels. Not start. I mean, it feels like starts, but they're relief appearances. Very long relief appearance against the Angels. Had another one recently against I want to say San Francisco, and then he went for 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, no walks. And the Marlins have a TBA spot for their last game against the Rays. Man, I mean, Jansen Junk, what have been your thoughts on him since coming up? Do you think he could potentially start that game? Maybe not, because I already went 4. It probably would be Beozo getting that one. But overall, just your thoughts on Junk and how he's looked so far in his Marlins tenure.
Yeah, it is just carried over from spring training. This is a guy that opened eyes in spring. He had that minor injury scare at the end of spring that took him out of consideration. He was one of those last non-roster invitees that was still in big league camp. We were wondering if he would sneak onto the opening day roster, and he just missed out, but he shoved in AAA. He had 1 bad outing in AAA out of 7 or 8. He was, for the most part, he was consistently great, the best pitcher on the Jumbo Shrimp. So they call him up, and he has been, it's been weird that they have basically like piggybacked him off of Quantrill each of those 3 outings. They've all come on Quantrill days. The Angels game was the really weird one where they took Quantrill out. We dove into it, 46 pitches into the game, and Junk ends up pitching more than Quantrill did in that outing, and he was just as effective. So overall, it's just 2 runs allowed in those 3 very long outings, and the underlying stuff are great too. He's throwing strikes. He's missing bats. He's been awesome. It has come, you could say they're kind of lower leverage situations, but not really. I mean, this Rockies game was close. That Angels game was relatively close when he came in. The middle one against the Giants was like,
that was the 101, right?
Yeah, like it's impressive any way you slice it. It's just unusual that if you're willing to let this guy go multiple times through a lineup like this, it makes you wonder. The logical next step would be to actually have him start games potentially. I do think he's better than Quantrill, but there's a lot more politics involved, where Quantrill is a pending free agent. He's the one guy on this team that they're going to try to shop for sure this deadline, because this is the 1 year that you have him, and he has been performing better as this year has gone on. So they're going to give him every opportunity to stay in this rotation in the meantime. You and I disagree about what he'll get in return at the end of the day, but I totally understand them trying and giving him those opportunities. With Junk, if this guy is a gem, let me try to look this up. He probably has 5 years of club control still to go if he actually works out. for a minor league deal to turn into this type of arm that at the very least is a good multi-inning reliever, that's a huge win. Like, this is, as much as we praise Bendix for certain waiver claims, this is in the same category where you pay basically nothing to get this guy. And now he's on the team. He just has a really deep pitch mix, a lot of ways to miss bats. So I've been really impressed. He's out of minor league options. So even if they wanted to send him down at some point for a fresh arm, you can't do it. So he's going to be on this pitching staff for a while. And you referenced Sunday. It'd be a slightly short rest for him. Maybe Beyozo starts that game instead and Junk comes out of the bullpen. But yeah, I'll just be fascinated to see how they use him, because this weird role that he's in right now is working. It's a good problem to have, even if you can't figure out exactly how he fits in. As long as he's getting outs, that's the most important part.
Now, this is just me thinking, out loud. Like, if he keeps this up for the next couple months, does he have any value whatsoever?
The thing is,
he won't keep it up. He won't. But if he somehow did,
he would. The thing is, he is barely a rookie in terms of service time, even though he's 29 years old. He's yeah, he's not going to be a free agent until 2030 if things go well. Like, they have time to. It's interesting because on one hand, with relievers, sometimes that stuff doesn't matter. If a reliever is hot, then other teams are going to be interested in him, even if he's a rookie, even if he's whatever. So I wouldn't totally rule out them shopping him to a contending team. It's just that they have so much time to figure out who he really is if he continues to have success. There's no pressure to do it at this deadline in particular. But yes, again, at the same time, our team in this Marlins position, they're not totally satisfied with the talent in the minor league system right now. So if this guy that they just signed off the scrap heap is able to bring back a decent package in return at the deadline, they're going to have to consider it. But I'm still going to lean on the idea that he's going to stay a Marlin this year, and then they reevaluate things entering next year if they continue to go well. But it's just a small sample so far. All I'll say is that dating back to spring training, he's been nothing but successful. So it looks legit. It looks like a guy that should have some role on this major league staff for a while.
I'll just weigh in quickly on Quantrill, and I won't go too far. But I've been critical of him at times, and I don't particularly think that he has fantastic stuff whatsoever. But he has at least average major league stuff, as his FIP would tell you, of a 4.33, where the average major league ERA is around 4.3. That is a pretty average major league pitcher. He has gotten so victimized and such bad luck for that player. Like a 341 BABIP where his ERA is over a run higher than his FIP. He's had very bad luck. So I'm glad that lately his luck has started to turn around. I don't think he's been a different pitcher lately. I just think his luck has turned around and he started to be kind of more of the pitcher that he's supposed to be, which is a league average starting pitcher. But yeah, if the Marlins can get anything at all out of him at the deadline, they should try to do it.
And I'm going to look, but I don't think he's walked many guys either. Yeah, only 17 guys. In the month of May, he walked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And like he's not walking a lot of guys. I think it's what Carter's kind of saying. Like, first of all, defense behind him isn't great, at least infield defense. Outfield's been really good. And then obviously he's just been hit pretty hard. But recently, luck's turned around. He's looked really good. And he mentioned it's just sticking to the plan, sticking to what he's been doing. And obviously it's working. Very quietly, as fun as he's been to watch, Augustin Ramirez maybe slumping a little bit. We would say 685 OPS in the month of May, combining with what we've seen so far in June. But he's walking still, like 11 walks against the 20 strikeouts, has 4 homers, 13 RBIs, and just not getting on base a lot. Like, what are you seeing with Augustin recently, Eli? Do you think it's just more of leagues adjusting to him? He needs to make the adjustment back, or do you think he's just getting exposed a little bit?
He's hitting a lot of ground balls. That's what I noticed. And the stats really back it up, especially on this past homestand. A ton of ground balls from Augustine. I think the ground ball rate in a really small sample, we just read it out from his Fangraphs splits this year. During April, when he came up and when he was lighting the world on fire, it was a ground ball rate of 39% in April, which is lower and then so therefore better for a hitter than league average. Then in May, there's about a 44% ground ball rate, which is a little bit higher than average. Then in June so far, 63% ground ball rate. that is like peak Sandy, as if every batter that peak Sandy was facing back in the day would pound the ball into the ground like that. So that is not good, and it's a waste of his ability because, of course, he hits the ball so hard, and the only way that those balls don't lead to productive situations or extra base hits is if you're just not elevating it enough. He's just a little bit out of sorts mechanically, where he's still making quite a bit of contact and he's still hitting the ball pretty hard. It's just going straight into the ground. So that's something that's pretty cyclical, and that happens over the course of this season with him. The overall numbers have come down quite a bit, as you mentioned, at this point, where he's still significantly better than league average, but not in a way that down to a 109 WRC plus. And mainly due to the on base coming down. And with him, that was still my biggest question with him coming up. I think the power that he has is undeniable. That's going to be there. He's going to be an above average power hitter moving forward. The question is the other aspects of his offensive profile, how much contact he's making, and what kind of pitches he's swinging at. So I think it's been a little bit mechanical. It's been a little bit chasing, especially off the outside corner and offering at pitches that he really can't do much with anyway. So putting them in play when he should be letting them go. It's been a little bit of both. Nothing that I'm super concerned about. I'm glad that I've been pleasantly surprised by how many opportunities he's been getting, that he plays almost every single day between DH and catcher. I was not expecting him to be DH quite as often as he is. And instead, they've been doing that so that he starts probably 5 out of every 6 games. And then on that 6th game, he almost always is used as a pinch hitter. So they're getting him all these reps that he needs. And I think he's going to pull out of it. Don't have any huge concerns about it.
I think the main difference, I don't know if you want to pull his savant up real quick, Eli, if you want to, you can, if not, whatever. But I think that the main difference is the bat speed, which is elite. Like he has like 86th percentile bat speed, 85th percentile bat speed, but then his squared up percentage is like the 25th percentile. So it's exactly what Eli said. This guy is swinging so hard, and he is like that violent power swing, and he just can't get the barrel on the ball. Like that's the problem. And eventually, for a pure power hitter like Augustin is, he's gonna do it. But as you can see by the chart, like right there, the bat speed, and then right there, not too long under there, is the barreled up, or the the squared up. And it's just porous. So I think that differential right there is what needs to be cleaned up for this player to succeed. I will always expect this player to strike out. He just has that violent approach that, it's going to lead to a lot of swing and miss. But if that's happening and he's still squaring up, 1 out of every 10 pitches, you take it. So that squared up percentage is that blue squared up percentage right there underneath that beautiful, beautiful bat speed is what needs to be cleaned up for this player.
And I want to stick on the topic of catchers because we could talk about Joe Mack real quick because he was just added to MLB Pipeline's top 100 with Matt Shaw graduating. So shout out Joe Mack. He's been a riser on a lot of lists, rightfully so. And that leads to the question. He's in AAA. He's raking. Well, he's been pretty good. I don't think he's raking, but he's been pretty good for the level. And the Marlins currently find themselves with 3 catchers on the roster, on the Major League roster, along with Joe Mack. And it looks like catching in this organization overall, the depth has really improved. Carver could talk about the depth in general, but it's improved for sure. But I want to start with this conversation because this is one that we've had in our chat. I've kind of tried to start it up as much as possible with Nick Fortes. Eli, I mean, we've seen really bad catchers like offensively get traded. Austin Hedges, he's obviously a better defender than Nick Fortes. I think Maldonado may have been traded at some point in his career. Like we saw Matt Tice get traded this season already. Danny Jansen last season. Everyone has their own little thing, but at least it's fair to say that there is a chance someone could trade for Nick Fortes, who isn't making a lot. The salary, he's going to go into his RBs real soon. So for the Marlins, it's a plus to trade him because you're just going to have to pay him more. And obviously, they don't want to do that. So there's different ways to look at it. What would you do if you're the Marlins with Nick Fortes?
I think they are in a tough spot until he gets a hit, not just a hit.
Yeah,
he is hit. He is in the middle of one of the longest hitless streaks of his career, and that's saying something because he's had some cold stretches in his career. He's gone 2 full weeks without a hit in a way that has brought down his overall numbers. I wouldn't say we were excited, but we did, give him credit very early on in the year, right before he got hurt. He actually got off to a good start offensively. He was hitting the ball hard in a way that we hadn't seen really the previous couple of years. Since coming back from the IL, at the very beginning, it looks like more of the same. And then since then, unfortunately, he's just gone into a deep, deep slump. Part of it is you would think the irregular playing time. He has understandably lost a lot of playing time to Gus and to Liam Hicks in a way that he only starts twice a week, usually in this case. Man, yeah, he's 0 for his last 17 or whatever. He's 3 for his last 39, now that I'm looking at it. And it's just brought down his overall slash line is even worse than it was the previous couple of years, which means you're only getting him for defense. And so that is where that's a real question with him is how good is he defensively? And that's kind of a subjective thing with catchers. In my opinion, I think he's a slightly better than average defensive catcher, but not in a way that a peak Austin Hedges was, and Austin Hedges still gets major league contracts deep into his 30s because of his defense. I don't think Fortes is on that level. His best skill is blocking pitches in the dirt, and he grades out very well doing that. And the other stuff is kind of all right, nothing particularly special in a way that like you can, as we get closer to the deadline, if injuries pop up, there's a decent chance that there's some contending team that sees him as a fit on the roster, just given that he's experienced. Like it or not, he has been the catcher for a playoff team before. Well, he's kind of the backup to Stallings that year, but still, like that experience might mean something. It's just, I don't know if there's a path to him actually bringing back something real in return. It would just be about saving money for the rest of this year and beyond, in my opinion, and getting him out of the way, as you point out, because between Hicks and Gus, you can just have those two as your catchers the rest of the season, even for being rookies. Those are guys that aren't going anywhere, and that would open up a lot of other possibilities with what they could do with the rest of the roster. So I think he's somebody that they'll try to look for trade possibilities. It's just that I don't know, man, because with the offense at this point being what we thought it was entering the year, and with the defense being fine, but just nothing special, in my opinion. I don't think there would get much of anything unless he surprisingly gets hot.
And I'll tell you this, because I don't think any of us expected Liam Hicks to do what he's doing as a Rule 5 pick. Obviously, you would have expected by this point, probably sent back to the Rangers, but that's what brings up the conversation. And then you look at it next year, Joe Mack would be ready by next year. Like, he could probably be on the opening day roster, maybe give it a month or two, like similar to the Augustin that timeline when he came up. Joe Mack would be up by that point. You're not going to have 4 catchers on the roster, so they're going to have to do something there. But Carver, let's talk some Joe Mack real quick. I mean, he's now on the Pipeline Top 100, Baseball America Top 100. He's our number 2 prospect now with Augustin Ramirez graduating for prospect eligibility. Thoughts on what you've seen from him so far? He's been pretty quiet in terms of just like the amount of love he's getting, but every once in a while his name continues to pop back up. What he's been doing, he's caught Yuri actually in those rehab starts for the most part. So just overall thoughts on Joe Mack, and how close do you think he is?
Yeah, just solid. I mean, I don't think, he's lighting the world on fire this year in the minors, but I think just solid. Pretty decent. What is he hitting? Like 250. The strikeouts are still there. That's kind of the thing I've always had with him is like, just dealing with strikeouts and trying to manage that as best as possible. He's walked a little bit more this year so far, which is good. But this guy's close, and the defense is real. I really do like the defense. I think his defense is there. He can handle any pitcher that's in front of him. He's pretty damn good with what he's doing overall. You want to see the power kind of start to show up a little bit more before long, where he has 5 home runs this year, which is not bad, but he's playing in a hitter-friendly environment. You kind of want to see that permeate from what he did last year with Pensacola, where he had a bunch of home runs. It's shown up a little bit. He's done it at times, but again, this is a hitter-friendly environment, so you kind of want to see it. If it's for real, you want to see it show up a little bit more. Of course, he's playing against the highest level of minor league competition that there is, so that you have to take that into account as well. What he's doing at the level that he's at. So I mean, overall though, not bad at all. I think he's shown that this is not what he did last year is not a fluke at all. I don't think it is. But just get the strikeouts in control a little bit better. But I think matriculating up from AA to AAA has not been bad for him. I think the defense shows off for itself. I think his defense is good, that he can handle major league pitching. I think he definitely can handle major league pitching. He's handled these rehabbers. He's caught Yuri. Like he's done all these different things. So I think that he definitely has shown it offensively, or sorry, defensively. Offensively, I want to see it just a little bit more consistently from what he did last year. But I think next year is a for real possibility for that player.
Alrighty, want to talk some Yuri Perez. We'll keep it short because obviously I think our next stream will be the big one to dive into it. But he will be making his season debut on Monday against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's back, made his final rehab start on Tuesday, where he went four and a third, 3 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. He threw 82 pitches, 44 for strikes. Overall, in his rehab assignments, he has a 1.99 ERA, a 3.72 FIP, strike a K per 9 of 10.72, 3.97 walks per 9. Hasn't allowed much home runs. Ground ball rate's low. Like he's been good. I mean, for the most part, he's been good. Some control issues here and there, but for the most part, Eli, I mean, Yuri's been good. And now the question is, what can we expect for Mr. Perez now? Obviously, him going back to the rotation was the big conversation. How was that going to work? But it speaks for itself. He'll just slide in right into Max Meyer's spot in the rotation. And yeah, I mean, finally, Yuri and Sandy fully healthy in the rotation. That should be fun. Hopefully, if Sandy continues to improve off of his start against the Rockies.
Right. Well, the question you had in there was what to expect, and I think it would just be irresponsible to try to give expectations when we've seen what happened with Sandy coming off Tommy John, looking great during his exhibition games, leading directly into the season, and then what the results have been. It's a mixed bag that you get, especially during that first year, or even part of that first year coming back from Tommy John. Everybody's body gets reacclimated differently. And it's hard to say exactly what he's going to be for starters. I think long-term, I'm still extremely high on Yuri. I think his potential is as high as anybody in this organization. And there's a reason why there was so much hype when he got called up. He had success initially when he was with this team. It's a process coming back from Tommy John that affects people differently. The big thing, as we saw with Sandy, is just a matter of commanding your stuff really precisely. You can have success even in the minor leagues if your command isn't precise. If your stuff is good enough and you're sequencing it right, you'll get help with chases outside the zone. You'll get mistakes that sometimes you get away with more often in those minor league settings than you would in the major leagues. So measurably, his stuff looks about as good as it did before going down, where his fastball is sitting in the high 90s and he's getting some funky swings on his curveball. But even in the minors, the control has been up and down. Even in this most recent rehab outing, I think he had 3 walks in there, and pretty deep into the start had almost as many balls and strikes. That continues to be the big question here. So I wouldn't. This is for you can't really guarantee that he's going to make them better immediately. It's very likely, and if things go well, then he can make their rotation dramatically better. But it's just hard to say when he's coming off of that same process that Sandy was and that so many other pitchers do. I think he's going to be fine long term. It shouldn't be taken for granted that he is able to throw as hard as he did before, and that he's able to throw all of his pitches in competitive situations. Like that in itself is a milestone that's important. That should make the Marlins feel great about what he's going to be in 2026 and beyond. But that is what makes his return, as we're expecting on Monday against the Pirates, to be all the more fascinating, because it could be dominance, it could be messy. Either way, I think they're going to give him as much as humanly possible the rest of this season to get adjusted back in this rotation. And I'm excited to see him, because there's just nobody quite like him in baseball that is 6'8" and has a deep pitch mix and is able, when he's on, to throw all his pitches for strikes. There's a reason why he's one of the top prospects in the league, one of the top pitching prospects the Marlins have ever had at the time of his debut. The hype was deserved. So it's just a question of how long he's going to take to get back to that form. And so even I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows for sure.
I think that the word that would permeate right now with the Marlins organization and with all of us is protect. They have to protect this player. They cannot afford another injury to a starting pitcher. Like if he comes back and has a setback, it's not going to be good. They have to protect this player. And in a lot of ways, not saying that Yuri is immature, but this is still a kid. you have to protect him from himself. So he doesn't have to go out there. And yes, we know he has the velo in the tank, just as Eli just said. We know he has the high effort pitches in the tank, as Eli also just said, in this deep pitch mix, as Eli also said. He doesn't have to go out there every single time and throw 99 with every single fastball and throw sliders and high effort pitches with each of his secondaries. He needs to go out there and build back. He's still, even though he had the rehab, he still needs to build back. So what I would say overall, and I definitely think, and all of us think how the Marlins will handle this situation, is that they will ease him back in. Even though he had rehab, don't expect Yuri Perez to come back and throw 7 innings in a start. That probably won't happen for at least another little while. He's still going to be going very easily through his initial build back into the major leagues, even against the Pirates. So I would expect a 4 to 5 inning start. Hopefully he goes 5. That would be great. I would expect like a 4 inning outing, maybe upwards of 50 pitches. That would be great. A great start for Yuri Perez. But the Marlins don't have to rush it for this pitcher. I think we can all agree that this is not going to be a winning season for the Miami Marlins. They need to build for the future and worry about the future. This is still a very young player coming back from a very serious injury. The Marlins need to protect this player from himself. And I think a lot of our questions about coaching and front office and rehabbing and quality control and human control, human building and health building will rely a lot on how they handle this situation with Yuri. They just need to let this player know that he doesn't have to be the Yuri Perez of old in every single outing as he's building back. If he has a blow-up start, it's fine. If he goes 2 innings and blows up, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. This is a player who needs to build back and gain confidence again in Major League Baseball, and above all, build up his health. That's the most important thing for Perez. If he goes through the rest of this season and in September he throws 6 and 7 innings, that's a win for Miami.
Let's start looking at the Rays as we preview this series. No lineups, obviously, just because we're doing this the day before, but make sure to follow Nate Karsmer, who's going to be on site for all 3 games. So we're going to have some away coverage, some consistent away coverage coming up with that one. And then I think we'll have Isaac potentially in Washington. So we'll see how that goes. But someone I want to talk about is on the pitching side first, and that's Taj Bradley. He's coming off a really awesome start against the Houston Astros. They lost, but I mean, it was a 1-0 loss. He goes 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, wasn't earned, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. Before that, goes 7 innings again. And he's been really good. I mean, what do you think has been working with Taj Bradley, Eli, the last couple starts? And this is someone who, I mean, Marlins have struggled offensively recently, so he could keep it going, or the Marlins could get to him. I think they got to him, back here in Miami, but this is looking like a pretty different version of Taj Bradley, at least in the recency, using recency bias.
He's just been inconsistent in his career. When he is on, he is awesome. I remember last year, there was a time around the All-Star break where he did 2.5 ERA. And then by the end of the year, it's back up to the 4s again with him. When he is on, it's a pretty complete pitcher where he just gets ahead in counts. He gets swing and miss, especially with his splitter, and he works deep into games. There was a stretch last year where he had a bunch of 7-inning starts in there. And yet, for whatever reason, it's just not consistent, as you pointed out. Like, it just took this hot streak lately to once again get his numbers back kind of in line with league average. And I not following the Rays close enough to tell you why it is that he's not consistently somebody that is the top of the rotation sort of guy. In this situation, the Marlins may be getting him at the wrong time, unfortunately, where he seems to have gotten a grip on that again. That 10 strikeouts in his last outing was a season high. He I mean, my default is to think that Bradley is a really tough matchup, and yet for some reason the overall numbers are easy to gloss over. So I think the Marlins, especially the way that they've been hitting the last week or so, they could be in pretty big trouble. If they had they were scoreless against Kyle Freeland through the first 6 innings, then Bradley is just a better pitcher, in my opinion, at this stage. So I would think that's a pretty big advantage towards the Rays. That'd be on the middle game of this series where he's lined up to start. But Ryan Weathers should be going from the Marlins side on the other end of that. So we would think that lines up well for the Marlins to have a chance, because Weathers has been great himself ever since debuting and coming off the IL with an ERA around 2.5 right here. But this will be one of the tougher tests for Weathers and for all the Marlins pitchers in this series. The Rays have been very inconsistent this year, but as of late, overall, they've just been very explosive offensively. The middle of that order coming alive, especially Junior Caminero and Jonathan Aranda. Aranda was hot heading into the first installment of the Citrus series, and now he's heated up again as of late. So this is a team that I remember when they previously met, both of these teams had similar records actually just a few weeks ago, and now the Rays are comfortably above 500 right here and looking a lot more like the team they were supposed to be entering the year.
Two former Marlins on this one, Carver. Two former Marlins that you covered closely. Jake Mangum, who we did not see in the first installment, is now back from the IL, and he's been really good, this season despite the injury in the middle. Then Cam Meisner, who definitely has struggled a little more. But let's talk about Mangum. I'm pretty sure we mentioned Meisner the first time around, but Mangum already in his major league career, 113 WRC plus, a 310 batting average, 348 on base. He's hit already 1 home run, 12 RBIs, 10 stolen bases in just 26 games played. Carver, this is a guy who we were very high on. Not very high on, but we thought this was a guy who they could call up in 2023. Unfortunately, made the playoffs, didn't have a big opportunity there, and then they traded him away in I believe it was the Calvin Fauché trade that brought him over here. Just your thoughts on Mangum, what you saw from the time he was in the Marlins organization and what you're seeing now.
Yeah, got him from the Mets, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was
pretty sure they did.
So he's trade, yeah.
Yeah, he's making his way around he made his way around the NL East, and now he's staying in Florida. So, athletic dude. I think the speed stands out to me more than anything. Plays all 3 outfield positions. I don't think he's a bad defender at all. I just think getting it going with the bat on a consistent basis has been his thing. I would liken this guy to like a Cody Ross, honestly. In my opinion, he's like a really pretty damn good 4th outfielder that hits for a little bit of power and he's fast. So I like him. I like Mangum, and he's been good for the Rays. So I'm excited to see him get it going. I was stoked to see him get his shot. I thought he deserved it. And he's showing out. I mean, he's hitting at the bottom of this lineup, but that's a good spot for him to kind of turn it over, especially with the speed, like I talked about. But decent, not bad at all. Good 4th outfielder type. He can play up, like I said, all 3 outfield spots. So I think that he is a decent 4th outfielder and a good fit for the Rays. Eli called it a Ronda. That guy is ridiculous. I mean, that guy is just so good. Just the quality of contact that player shows, even though, I think he's maybe a little bit defensively limited. The quality of contact that player shows is just so good. Doesn't really need speed. Just hits nukes. And his swing decisions are also have been really good. A solid player that is very deserved of the 2nd spot in this lineup with all that beautiful red right there that you can see on your screen. So beautiful player. Just breaking out at the right time for a decent Tampa Bay Rays team. That guy is pretty damn good, and I'm stoked for him. And Caminero, I mean, that guy needs no introduction. He's been a highly heralded prospect for most of his career, and he's showing up as well. So he showed up pretty quickly too. But yeah, Aranda for me has been a very, very, very big breakout player for this team. Very good.
First game will be at 1:10 p.m. That'll be it'll be Edward Cabrera versus Zach Littell. Second game is at 4:10. The latest start time of this series. It'll be Ryan Weathers against Taj Bradley. And then the last game will be a 12:10 start. It'll be a TBA. We're assuming it'll probably be Valente Belloso against Drew Rasmussen, who was very good, I believe, against the Marlins. So, alrighty. I think we can hit the music and we could start a prediction time.
All right.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
That's not the new prediction time video. I thought I had the new one. All right, here's the new one.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
Oh my God.
I kept both of them in there for some reason, but we're going to use the Bruce one moving forward. This team, as of this moment, I think their winning percentage is identical to last season so far, but still a lot of year to be played. This is a look at our leaderboard, including our Fish on First staffers, our wonderful super subs, and our live stream guests throughout the season. You just predict how many games Marlins are going to win, who will be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. I've continued to slump right here. Very low scoring series against the Rockies because all but 2 people predicted the Marlins to win the series. A lot of people predicted them to sweep. Nobody predicted the Rockies to sweep themselves. So basically the status quo to where we were just a few days ago right there. And by doing this on an off day, you still have 4 more hours tonight, then 13, still 17 hours plus to leave your predictions on the site or in our Discord channel if you choose to as one of our super subs. So let me just get the background on here and get the music going. And then, we'll let Kevin lead off with his prediction. Hold on.
I am going to go with the Rays taking 2 out of 3. And my MVP, I had a couple of options, but I'm gonna go with Taj Bradley. I think he continues this little stretch he's on. I think he'll get to the Marlins offense, which has been dormant. But yeah, I think we'll go with that. Unfortunately, Mr. Nate Carson won't have a very good results in Tampa, but we'll still have a great time. Rays 2 out of 3. Taj Bradley, Series MVP.
Okay, Alex Carver, your prediction, sir.
The misery is going to continue, unfortunately. I will go with the Rays also winning 2 out of 3. And for every reason that I just said, Aranda's not slowing down. He's the MVP.
I will keep with the trends. The Rays lost uncharacteristically the Citrus series in this first installment. They probably get revenge right here. Things are going very well for them. And yeah, the Marlins got to pick themselves up. This is a pretty extended dry spell for them, but especially over this past week. Until I see up myself that their offense is back rolling again, I'll go with the Rays to win 2 out of 3 in this series. We didn't mention Yandy Diaz, the guy that continues to underperform his underlying numbers. He has a pretty long track record, though, of being very productive. And I think he's going to be one of the engines of this Rays offense over the course of the weekend. So Rays 2 out of 3, Yandy MVP. As for the season overall, the Marlins and Rays split the Citrus series down the middle at 3 wins apiece.
Alrighty, we'll wrap it up there. I like your Yandy prediction. He had mentioned to me back here in Miami that he felt like he had been one of the unluckiest players in baseball this season. So probably not wrong. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Make sure to follow Nate. He will be on site. I believe this is our first person that we have on road coverage this season. So good for us, on site road coverage. So he'll be there for all 3 games. Follow him. Follow the Fish on First account. And we'll wrap it up here from Alex Carver, Eli Sustin, myself. We'll see you guys all on Sunday for the Spaces, Monday for the next stream as Yuri makes his return. Peace out and go Fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.